We shut the door, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Good evening. Time is now 6:30 p.m. I'm Chairman Tim Toth. I'd like to call the Select Board Business Meeting to order on this 12th day of October 2022. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that. Before we begin, I'd like to state for the record, not only are we being streamed live on TCTV Cable Station 8 and our YouTube web platform, but this evening's recordings will be available for later viewing on our YouTube channel. As always, you want to get the notifications, hit the like, hit the bell, and you'll get the notification pop right into your web device. We have the following board members, staff, and expected guests. Select Board Member Bennett, Select Board Member Griffiths, Select Board Member Pritchard, Select Board Member Curry, and myself, full board tonight. We also have our town administrator, assistant town administrator, and the administrative assistant. Number of folks in the gallery, and if I miss one, I will apologize. Starting in the back of the room, I see Mr. Lutchford, John Brooks, Luann Royer, Fred Henshaw from our Assessors office, Chief Bennett, Chief Dickey, Bob Zosik, Tim Batchelder, and remotely with us, Rich Curtis, our Emergency Management Director. And I'm sorry, don't know your name. Thank you. As always, the agenda for this evening has been set no later than 48 hours out by law, publicly available at the official source for town information, templetonma.gov. Although I have discretion as the chairperson to add or remove from the agenda, it has been set to allow for time, personnel resources, and public awareness. I reserve the right to move agenda items around to best fit our business and guests. Thank you. If it's your first time attending a select board meeting or any public meeting within the community, welcome. We're glad you joined us. Please be aware we do our best to address all agenda items adequately, all public concerns with due concern, and all comments with dignity and patience. Please do your best to show the same respect. A few comments for the guests we have joining us remotely. Right now, just Mr. Curtis, the Zoom rules of the road. Rich, use the video whenever possible, but if you're waiting, it's fine to shut down the camera. Keep the mic muted unless we have you up. If you need to speak, you can raise your hand or politely break in. If you wish to have material shared, please request that of the chair. I don't believe that'll be the case tonight, sir. And as always, public participation comments still possible via the live chat section on the live stream and on YouTube. TCTV monitors the chat section and will address any comments or questions as they appear when appropriate. And they can let me know if other things pop in. Okay, now that the housekeeping is out of the way, we will proceed into our minutes. So action item 3A, approval of minutes.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Rice.
I move to approve the minutes of 9/28/22 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion, team? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. Mr. Bennett,
I will abstain.
Ms. Griffiths.
Yes.
Ms. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Curry.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Let the record show 4 yes, 1 abstention. Item 3B, executive session meeting minutes.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the executive session minutes of 9/28/22 as presented and for them to not be released to the public at this time.
To be released.
To be released.
Yep.
Oh, mine.
Sorry. No, you're good.
Error.
You're good.
Typo.
It was a typo.
Okay. To be released to the public at this time.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Jeff and I were not there for it, but given the subject, I know that we've talked about it before. I intend to vote on it, even though I was not present. I know that council has ruled on these before, extension because of absences. I just wanted to say it because, Jeff and I might have a differing opinion on voting, but for what it is, I'm going to vote.
Full disclosures.
Yep.
Any further discussions, team? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. Mr. Bennett,
Abstain.
Ms. Griffiths.
Yes.
Ms. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Perry,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. Thank you for that. Citizen input.
I'm gonna let Terry's chomping at the
She
bit.
is.
I brought this. I don't know how we can show it. I don't know if the owl can see it. I'm gonna try to. Know who they are. TCTV did an excellent job putting it on channel 8 and putting this together for the public. And it's this Saturday. Doors open at 8:30. Everyone's invited. Coffee with the candidates. It's a forum, not a debate. We hope to keep the peace. And yeah, so we have 7 candidates coming. So know your candidates. If you looked at this or you go to channel 8, you can see how well you can answer the questions of who they are. And it'd be nice for a lot of people to come out and have Templeton's best foot forward for the hard work that these folks do. Did I forget anything? Doors open at 8:30. Starts at 9. Where is it? Oh, thank you. 16 Senior Drive in Baldwinville. 16 Senior Drive. If you want to plug it into your GPS, it's 96 Bridge Street for people out of town. Thank you. I did that last time too.
Our senior community center and those who utilize the cooling center, same bat time, same bat channel.
I've got one, Tim. Saturday, November 5th.
Oh, nice.
Jim Brio and a lot of the veterans within this area have put together a suicide prevention and awareness workshop that is going to be a full day event, but it starts at 9:30 in the morning. They expect many participants, to include one of the keynote speakers, Brigadier General PG Smith. This is an open and free event for the entire community, young, old, and otherwise. So I believe the month is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. This is a pretty important event that the veterans and Jim Brio have put on, going to put on for this community. The American Legion and the Friends of Templeton veterans are going to put on a free breakfast prior to. So that's another incentive to come and get some free pancakes at the American Legion in Baldwinville. That'll be at 7:30 all the way up until 9:30 when the event starts at the Narragansett Middle School Auditorium. There is plenty of social media out there. It's on Twitter, it's on LinkedIn, it's on Facebook. We're looking for again, it's a veteran-centric event, but it's the greater issue of suicide awareness and prevention. Anybody can come. We're at the Narragansett School District is partnering and allowing us to come in and use the auditorium. So again, if it's a subject that is near and dear to your heart, or you just want to know more, they actually will have counselors there. If you're out there and you're struggling, they'll have breakout groups where they can actually get you paired up with a counselor right away. So November 5th, mark it on your calendar, week before Veterans Day. Look forward to seeing you all there. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks.
Thank you for that.
Mr. Chair, if I may make an announcement.
Go ahead,
Saturday, we're gonna be paving the far side of Hubbardston Road towards Hubbardston, working my way into town. We will have a road closure on the Hubbardston side for incoming traffic. And we'll have one lane of traffic going through. There'll be 2 detailed police officers and some highway personnel. And the remainder of South Road work will follow in the next week or so, while the committee.
All right, thank you for that. And if anybody who did not hear it, or if it was slightly muffled, Saturday, Hubbardston Road, the far end at the Hubbardston line, working back toward the center, some paving ops. And then the ongoing continuing with South Road.
Yeah.
Appreciate that, Mr. Zosik. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
can I clarify, where are you doing this? Are you doing some of Hubbardston Road and some, because Hubbardston Road is coming up in this conversation, and so I'm
Hubbardston line back to.
Hubbardston line, but not Hubbardston Road. Okay,
So it's
just
all
needed a
south.
clarification.
Oh,
Oh, South
South Road,
Road.
okay.
Oh, that's,
South.
Far end of South
Yeah,
Road.
it's okay. I apologize if I misspoke,
Okay.
because I thought you said
Yeah.
Hubbardston Road.
He did, and then you did.
Yep.
So I was like, where are we?
good catch, Julie.
From French Road to the Hubbardston line.
Perfect, thank you.
Good catch.
And for those keeping that,
Good
that
catch.
will be where Route Road ends and our
Correct.
South Road begins. Thank you for that. Good catch.
Thank you.
Terry already talked about meet the candidates event.
She did.
She was
I'm so
dying to talk
excited.
about it.
I really am. Made a quadruple batch of almond biscotti today.
Ooh, you might have to do a quintuple batch, but that stuff is good.
Yeah.
Very good. Mr. Lamontagne, we have no introductions of new employees tonight, correct?
We do not have any this evening, Mr. Chair.
Very good. We do have an appointment. For our Veterans Graves Officer. Tim Batchelder, our VSO, is with us tonight. Good evening, Tim.
Good evening, sir. Mr. Chair,
Mr. Rice.
I move to appoint Tim Batchelder as the Veteran Graves Officer for a term to expire on June 30th, 2023.
Second that motion.
Motion made, duly seconded. Any discussion, team?
I'm so happy to have you aboard, Tim. You know,
We all are.
this is your first select board meeting. Here's our congressional delegation. You know, you couldn't have picked a better. Yeah.
Second in the
Second
row.
time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You were there before.
Yeah.
I was on the road. I apologize.
I was surprised.
He was here for the big check. And for those keeping score, this is just a housekeeping item where our Veterans Officer is appointed as the Veterans Graves Officer. So hearing no further discussions, team, we'll bring this to a vote. Mr. Bennett,
Yes.
Ms. Griffiths.
Yes,
Ms. Richard.
Yes.
Mr. Curry.
Yes.
I vote yes as well. Thank you, team.
Thank you.
Any comments, Tim?
I'm excited to join the community and I'm really excited to get up and running. Hopefully gonna get all my training done really shortly and be able to provide the utmost services to our local veterans. I'm gonna be here to, in the meantime, to assist them in network, and if they're in any immediate assistance, get them connected with the proper benefits and applications that they need to until I complete the training at the end of October, state training. And I'm just really excited to be a part of the community and help our local veterans.
so welcome.
Thank
So
you for that.
welcome here. Thank you.
Thanks.
Up next, item 5C, action regarding the joint board appointment. Reference filling a vacant seat for the Board of Assessors. And you see we have members from the Board of Assessors here, as well as our deputy assessor. Have the three of you come on up to the hot seat.
Nobody else wants to be here, so I guess I will. John Brooks, Board of Assessors. Since forever. We have a vacant position on the board, and I reached out to a former assessor. He spent 10 years, 9 or 10 years on the board, Steve LaPrise. His state credentials are still good. So he's certified by the state. He's got the experience to help us out. And he wants the job, more importantly.
Till May.
That's pretty hard to come by. Well, I did ask him if he wanted the job, yes, but he said, yes, he would take it. And I think he'd be a good person for the board. He has agreed to take it from now until May. Whether he runs again in May is entirely up to him. That we can't predict. So I present his name and I think he'd be a good person.
Since this is a joint appointment for a matter of record, what we would do is have you call your board to order. We'll take the vote and then you can close your board at that point.
Okay, I am not at this point the chairman. However, I guess because I'm sitting here in front of the microphone, I call the meeting to order.
The senior man sometimes has to take the fall, right?
Yeah, right. Call this meeting to order. Somebody taking notes, I assume. I would entertain a motion that we appoint Steve LaPrise as assessor for the town of Templeton.
Make a motion to appoint Steve LaPrise as assessor to fill in the town of Templeton.
Second motion. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
I believe this board does. Yes.
So voted.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
I move to appoint Stephen LaPrise to the Board of Assessors for a term to expire at the next annual town election.
Second.
Motion duly made and seconded. Any discussion, team?
Steve's good people.
That this is great. Prior experience, still certified, and I'm sure Mr. Brooks was not shy to ask for the help when we so desperately needed it. Hearing no further discussion, we'll bring this to the vote. Mr. Bennett,
Yes.
Ms. Griffiths.
Yes.
Ms. Richard.
Yes.
Mr. Curry.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Outstanding.
Thank you very much.
And just matter of formality, John, just
I move we adjourn the meeting.
for the assessor.
Second. All
Unless you
those in
guys.
favor?
I swear that was almost right out of. Oh, I'm sorry. You say that, sir. Say what? Meeting's adjourned. It is?
Guys.
Good night, gentlemen. Good night, Luann.
Night.
Point of order. Okay. Mr. Chair, point of order.
Go ahead, Mr. Vice.
I'd like to request that we take item J as in Juliet out of order. And that's the letters of support to Main Street Amendment, House 4897.
Yes.
It's good.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hey,
So, Mr. Chair, this is a letter that we drafted up, sent over to Governor Charlie Baker's office. We have a great legislative team. They've been working with us. They have everything to go for the $3 billion transportation bond bill. Senator and Rep know how much I like big checks. I'm hopeful that the governor releases the funds. But I think this is the first step. If the rep or the senator wants to go further, I think that pretty much sums it up. And I
Yeah.
appreciate a little bit of your assistance on the certain language you use in the
Yes.
legislature. So thank you for that.
Happy to provide that. So this is one of the first things that was flagged for us earlier in the year as far as big ticket infrastructure items. As you may recall, the federal government passed a sort of once in a generation infrastructure improvement bill at the federal level. The state got many billions of dollars out of that. And one of the things that we did for the town of Templeton was put an amendment into that bill for $3 million to replace Main Street Bridge. What this letter is for is that the way the state handles these big infrastructure projects is you have to go through the normal legislative project, and then you have to go through the capital improvements sort of process as well. So this letter is sort of to start that process by making the request of Governor Baker to release the funds. Obviously, there's only about 80 days left in the administration. So we're not anticipating this administration to make a decision on that. And what we'll have to do is once we know who the next governor is, to start kind of the process with that administration, with the goal of getting on the next governor's capital improvement plan, which gives us a much better shot of getting the money released to us.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to it, and so this is not just a exercise in futility, because what it does is by getting it in the pipeline, because even though that there will be a change in administrations, a lot of the people that work in A&F, they don't change. So the folks, the boots on the ground people don't change. So they will have that paperwork now. And so it just helps when we go into the next session. And typically the governor will present a plan usually around May. So what we will do after the next governor is in place, we'll give that person a little bit of breathing room, but we'll get right back at that. We'll come back to you probably for an updated letter at that time.
And what we've already started working on with the town administrator is supplemental letters from the community, talking about the importance of it, the impact it's having on businesses, for instance, to really build that case that this is important and worthy of being put on that improvement plan, and then also providing the administration with all the technical information and engineering data to go along with that as well.
Outstanding.
Thank you so
Very
much.
welcome.
Appreciate
Always
it.
a pleasure to have our legislative team partnering and working alongside of us and helping us to get through some of these hurdles that initially appeared to be insurmountable.
Mm.
That's what we're here for.
We certainly appreciate it.
Yeah, and to mention semen paper in the memo. It's huge. They are a specialty page. It's not just paper.
Right.
It's specialty paper, like one of the only people left that make the specialized paper. So all these different things all these gems that we have in Templeton, these are what we're trying to protect. And we really appreciate you helping us with that.
And I think given the proximity of the paper mill to the bridge, I'm hopeful that they'll help and lend their
Spitting
voice.
distance.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
Right.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Rice,
I move to approve the letter in support of the Main Street Bridge Amendment and for the board to sign.
Second,
motion duly made and seconded. Any discussion, team? Hearing none, I will call for a vote. Mr. Bennett,
Yes.
Ms. Griffiths.
Yes, thank you.
Ms. Richards,
Yes.
Mr. Perry.
Yes.
I vote yes as well.
thank you again.
Thank
Senator
you.
Goby,
Great.
Representative Locke,
Thank you.
as always, thank you for the assistance.
You're welcome.
We look forward to continuing our working
See
relationship.
you Saturday. We're not done though yet. We have one
Oh.
more thing too, but I'm not sure if you're taking that as well or not.
Oh, item K.
Oh, Gamma.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Michelle, come on over.
I'll make that point. I wanted to carry,
Yeah.
to take item
Item
K
K
out of
next.
order.
Thank you.
So thank you for round two.
Yeah.
So to make sure everyone's on the same page, earlier this year, a massive multi-state settlement was announced between some of the bigger opioid manufacturers and sellers, and among other people, our Attorney General's office, to compensate states and communities hardest hit by the opioid epidemic. And those payments have actually already started to be paid, and they're going to be paid out over the next couple of decades, actually. So earlier this year, when I saw the initial numbers and then went into what each community was going to get, obviously, when you split up even a very sizable sum as the settlement is by a number of states, and then all the communities within that state, each community's individual portion of that gets a little small. So what I started working on, and I contacted GAAMHA, was to see what we could possibly do if we could pool some of these funds between the smaller communities in North Worcester County, to see what we could do based on, one, the amount of money that these communities were going to get, and then the anticipated caseload that we would have. And so what we were able to put together was funding a position known as a recovery support navigator. And this person, or the program's job, will be to coordinate with local police and fire departments to assist when there is an overdose or a similar situation to rapidly, well, maybe I'll let you explain.
sure,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. This is
This is
Michelle
Michelle
Dunn from GAAMHA.
Thank
Oh,
you.
welcome.
Director of Community Engagement. Yep,
Yes,
awesome.
thank you. So Recovery Support Navigator, really their whole oh, gee whiz. Their whole purpose is to provide critical short-term case management to an individual. So that individual, we can come across them anyway. They can be somebody who shows up at, City Hall looking for assistance with housing. They're looking for a PCP. They do have to be diagnosed with a substance use disorder. So that has, they have to be either in early recovery or seeking recovery. And the case manager, the Recovery Support Navigator is helping them navigate the system of the services they need and trying to remove basically any barriers they may have. So usually we have 90 days that we work with Medicaid with, but we're able to work with somebody as long as 180 days until they're able to meet their goals, because that's also part of it, is that they set goals that they want to meet while they're working with the Recovery Support Navigator.
So the towns that are that we've approached to be part of this are obviously Templeton, Gardner, Winchendon, Ashburnham, and Westminster. Templeton and Gardner have already taken the votes that you're being asked to take tonight, and then we're in the process of getting that scheduled and worked out with Ash West.
And part of it too, as John and Michelle were talking about, that because the town of Templeton's getting a small amount of money, and as you can imagine, in trying to spend on the paperwork that would be, and the time it would take to just do paperwork associated with spending a small amount of money, it makes a lot more sense to try to pool together, go through an agency that already knows how to do the work and can do the work. And the idea is to get help to people in the communities. So that's why we're coming to you and asking you to be part of this kind of like consortium, if you will.
And I think we had talked about it before. This supports an FTE, like an additional FTE for your office, which is a huge, like just another person on deck. No, like you said, Ann, knows the right people, isn't foreign to the process or otherwise. So that was the biggest part for me, was using our small resources, pooling, and then being able to turn that into a real definable asset against addiction.
And something that can actually, the idea of this is that they can go to where the person is rather than having to, wait for someone to come to them.
As a paramedic myself, recently retired from our fire department. Well, not recent, it's been 9 months. Wow. When we had the initial conversation, Representative Zlotnick, you had me when we sat down and started to discuss it, and just the way this plays out, and the fact, pulling the resources, making this work, being able to get all the communities and make sure we're getting all the people, we're not having any slip through the net. It was just the no-brainer to take the next steps and move this along.
Tim, I got a quick question.
Go ahead.
Fiscal years through 25. I guess now's, whether it's now or in the near future, in terms of supportability, to make sure that if Michelle, if this is a great thing that winds up being great for our area, sustainability past 2025, if that's when the settlement money basically dries up, right?
No,
This agreement, I'm sorry, you're right.
Yeah,
That's like a decade.
Yes,
It's like
right.
a
Like
decade.
that VW.
yeah.
that goes on.
The settlements for a couple of decades. What we're proposing as an initial step for this is a 3-year agreement,
Got it.
because we think that'll give enough time to sort of test this out rather than lock into something more long term.
Yep.
But to do it as almost like a trial.
Right, and I know the amounts fluctuate per year or otherwise, so whatever we can do to help normalize that. If you wind up seeing like a bump in the road that gives you more, or a pothole.
What we've talked about in structuring this over multiple years, and I think the benefit of doing this through a nonprofit as opposed to as each individual municipality doing it
Right.
separately is and structuring it as a grant the nonprofit can take that money because year one is significantly higher than subsequent years.
Mhm.
The nonprofit has the ability to take that money and spread it over those
That's
years.
great. Oh, that, excellent. Yeah, I know that was a due out. But that's good to know.
My question is, how do you get the word out on the street to the people that need it?
So right now, what we actually do work with the DA's office for a post-overdose knock and talk, it's called a COSAP grant. So we have recovery coaches that will follow up with the PDs if there was a non-fatal overdose. I also oversee like the community engagement piece, so I go to every fair, every school. GAAMHA is pretty well known, I feel like, in this area, but we do flyers, we have pamphlets. I actually brought one so you could see what our community resources are, because we have quite a suite of services that we're able to offer through GAAMHA in general, not just this. So,
Right. We're definitely no stranger to your office. Thanks for bringing those too.
Yeah, absolutely. Just
If I could just, put the motion, the draft motion, if we could just strike as presented within the motion, only because we're still working on the payment schedule.
Yeah.
Representative and he's working with a couple other towns, and we're just trying to figure that out through the Department of Revenue. So I'll finalize the agreement, but as presented, I think we could strike that, so I could figure out the proper language to put within the agreement.
Because once we get everybody who's participating kind of through these initial steps, then we'll likely come back and require another vote to sort of finalize everything. Right now, the other sort of piece that we're waiting on is the legislature, as part of another bill, passed an amendment to change to exempt these funds from the normal budgeting process. Otherwise, it'll have to go to town meeting, which obviously we can take care of. If this amendment ends up going through, you won't have to do that.
Got it.
So that's the other piece that we're waiting to sort of finalize with this as well.
lots of moving pieces on this.
Yes. It's a federal, state, local collaboration. I'm surprised it's as simple as it is.
I'll knock on wood.
Because it's
Yeah,
necessary,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
it's crucial.
Mr. Vice.
I move to enter in for the sorry, I move to enter into and for the town administrator to finalize the agreement between the town and GAAMHA, and for the town administrator to sign. Sorry, I was a little wordy there.
Second,
Motion made and seconded. Any discussions, team? Second call, any discussions? Hearing none, I'll bring this to a vote. Mr. Bennett?
Yes.
Ms. Griffiths?
yes.
Ms. Richard?
Yes.
Mr. Curry?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Thank you, team.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, please.
It's great to see you. Thanks for the pamphlets.
Thank you for your work.
Yes, nice to meet you.
Thank you
as
for
well.
your work.
Thank you for
Nice
your
to meet
time.
you.
Thank you. Take care. We'll see you.
Thanks.
Drive safe.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Always a pleasure to see our legislative team here.
Does anyone want one, or we'll just put them in the? I'll just
Mike,
put 'em in.
do you want to take one with you? Pamphlets,
Mike and Chief.
chief.
Back to D. Resuming our regular schedules. Action item 5D, presentation, quarterly reports, Q1, FY23, public safety. We have both our fire chief and police chief here. You guys want to arm wrestle, see who goes first? Kidding.
I don't want to see that. True solidarity.
Good evening.
Hey, Chief.
Good evening, Judy.
First quarter report for the fire department. We had a total of 422 emergency calls for the first quarter, 82 residential and commercial inspections. This is a 20% increase in our call volume and a 24% increase in our inspections from the same quarter of last year. For our equipment, Forestry One, which is a 1983 military 5-ton that was retrofitted into being an off-road brush tanker, had to be taken out of service with major engine problems. It's right now it has all kinds of coolant in all the engine and everything, and early estimates on repair of this truck eclipse $10,000 to $20,000 for a 1983 military truck. That would be to replace the engine with an engine we actually already own in a different truck, but changing it from doing work to it to take it from a manual transmission to an automatic transmission that this truck has. So at this point in time, that truck remains out of service. I have been working with the State Forest Bureau. That's where we go to find our excess military trucks to see if there's any more chassis out there that would meet the need, because the fire equipment on the truck is still good. It's older. It's 12 to 15 years old, but it's still, everything works on it. The tank is good, no damage. It could slide right off of that military truck and go right on to another, if needed. But we are,
It's a skid system.
It's in the payload of the truck.
it's a skid. So basically it could technically go on any flatbed truck that can hold close to 32,000 pounds, because it's a 1,000-gallon water tank that's on it. There are very few of these actually in the fire district. The off-road tankers, there's less than 5 or 6 really in the whole fire district that can hold that much water. So not just only to help us, but to help other communities. So right now we're down this one and Barry is losing theirs. Our closest truck to that capability is either with the state or out towards Princeton or Holden. So, but we are looking for replacement military chassis, and I'm working with vendors on an NFPA compliant replacement if needed for pricing. Our annual service for all of our trucks, our engines, our other equipment, and our NFPA testing is all being starting now for the fiscal year, being scheduled throughout the year. We did, and I'm sorry they left, we did receive our utility truck from the state during this quarter. We're still waiting for radios to get installed into it, but it is being used and there's equipment on it. And our capital equipment from the fiscal year has started to come in and get put into service, our SCBA's, so forth. Down below is a breakdown of the calls if anybody has any questions on the calls.
Chief, I got a quick question on the truck. Military auctions, did the state, do they like browse all the sites
do.
for you?
So I have both one of my fire captains who is friends with the people in the district that go searching for those trucks
Yeah.
for departments. He's looking, and I have the District 8 state fire chief looking for us as well. So
They procure for you, or is it?
they find it, and then it works through them and through me to procure the truck. And
So we have to come up with the money for that.
no, when those come up, that's those there. There's no cost to that except to go get them. No, sometimes it's a trip.
Keep
to
doing what you're doing.
There's been,
Free trucks.
trips to Pennsylvania to go get them. Sometimes you can scuttle them up a little closer and everything. That's a very popular program to get towns by. We could also go buy an International or a Ford or a Chevy, whatever chassis that size, and, buy the chassis as a flatbed and put our skid unit on it. But at that point, you're not designing an NFPA compliant truck at that point in time. So everything I'm pricing out right now is NFPA compliant, but some of them are two pieces. So if through capital in the town and everything, they decided that all they wanted, we could afford or whatnot, or to go get would be a chassis and put our skid unit on it. That option will also be in there because a couple of the companies with this style truck, you purchase the chassis and then you ship it to Canada for a retrofit into a truck from that point on, so part of that could be taken out of the process if you just wanted to put the old tank and fire equipment on it at that point in time. So I am trying to break out pricing the best I can for the most options.
Does the one that's out of service get how much use? Like,
So
you said
it's a very large truck for brush.
Oh,
It's a 5-ton military truck. It does not go out very often. It's one of our last trucks out.
Okay.
It's
Fills a pretty critical role.
no, but again, the other two brush trucks we have, the other, one of them is a 2.5 military truck that's a mid-80s, and the other is a 1978 Chevy pickup truck. So our forestry unit is older and is functioning well. Don't get me wrong, those other two trucks are doing well. Especially now the forestry truck, the small Chevy, we've taken some of the load off of it with Bob dropping down his SUV for inspections for us, better gas mileage and not having a toll on that truck there. And we have the one from the state too, to help out as well.
Thanks.
Mr. Chair. I'm curious of the large animal rescue. Did you work with animal control with that?
So, no, so this large animal rescue is actually part of the district technical rescue team. We have a member that is on that team, and they actually, the district went out for a horse rescue in that, but we, through our mutual aid partners with District 8, also Royalston has equipment. We have the availability for large animal rescue without more than the animal control officer would probably have. They have some equipment. They go through, Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, DART, I think it is.
I believe it is.
I can see the plaque on the
Yeah,
wall
DART.
in my office, but
Mr. Curtis. said
Mr.
that.
Curtis
So,
said Dart as
yeah,
well.
so, and they have that availability as well for large animal rescue. But when we need to go through it, we really go through the district team or through our mutual aid partners.
Thanks, good to know. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
I just had one quick question as well on the breakdown of your phones, and your calls. Hazmat 3. A little unusual.
Nope, hazmat is a very wide topic. It can be anything from an unknown chemical at somebody's house or a place of business down to a oil spill out of a trash truck
Okay,
or something like that. So it's actually,
kind of wide.
yeah, actually having only 3 for the quarter is actually kind of low. Some of the trash companies have repaired their trucks. We've had more than that in the past and it's gotten better.
Curious. Thank you.
And for those who don't know, the fire department has recently picked up a new piece of equipment and they've been going through the training. I was given the opportunity to train with them as well because I'm maintaining my own paramedic credentials. They're doing field ultrasounds. The device is called the Butterfly IQ. And we're one of a handful in the state that are doing pre-hospital ultrasounds. It's all part of a trauma assessment, and it helps guide, you're ruling trauma in. It helps guide where do you take the patient, get them to where they need to be. So, the animal rescue, all these other things, the numbers are going up. The newest, latest and greatest, literally the leading edge technology. Little Templeton is growing leaps and bounds and really raising the bar, and
Yeah, you'll see more on the ultrasound on
departments
my
to,
next quarter
aim
report when more of the training is complete and we actually get it rolling out to be used.
That's impressive.
yeah, it is.
It's actually a very impressive tool in what the paramedics can do with it. We're going to be limited in the beginning because, as the chairman said, we're one of very few in this area, and we're probably may be the only one with our medical control director that's using it. So, before they let us use it to rule out a lot of stuff and transport decisions, they've got to see us using it and get comfortable with it and so forth. But eventually, there's a lot of different things that we're going to be able to do with it and help our patients get to the correct location in the fastest time possible.
Another good thing.
Yep.
Wow. It's
Absolutely.
gonna help a lot of people. Very nice.
Any other
Thank you.
questions?
Thank you.
Chief Bennett, to you, sir.
I did have a tie on to start the day, but it's been a long day, so that came off. Okay, just to touch on the high points here. Station project, the flagpole was finally installed. If you go up and down South Road, you can see that we have the American and Commonwealth flags up. Our HVAC system, the upgrade went out to bid. Unfortunately, it came back a lot higher than what we expected. So now the dilemma is, how do we pay for it? Town administrator and I are talking about that. One option is sending it back out to bid and see if we can get a lower bid the next time we send it out. Once we can resolve that issue, then we'll have to address replacing or repairing the upstairs floor. The downstairs floor is okay because that lays on concrete, so the humidity didn't damage the floor downstairs. As part of the capital plan that we've been phasing in, this is phase 2. We ordered 9 more radios to replace the ones that we had from the initial buy that was back in 2010. Our tasers, we went through our taser training. All the officers are utilizing the new tasers. Our body worn cameras are in the holding pattern because we're waiting equipment from Axon. One of our stations or docking ports was down. We had to send it back. Hopefully we'll get that back and we'll get that up and running. As you will see on the bottom, cruisers. Well, we have the FY22 hybrid SUV sitting on a dealership, waiting for supply chain issues so we can get lighting in it. And then you'll also notice that last week we were notified that our F-150 from FY21 is now sitting on a lot and waiting to be outfitted. And we're told that's going to be an additional 45 days out on that one. Lastly, I'm going to go into, as you all are aware, and for this fiscal year moving forward, we utilized opera funds to bring the department back up to 10 full-time officers, including myself, which hasn't been at full strength since 2014 when I took over. We have our new recruit, who is that 10th officer, who is going to start the Boylston Academy on October 17th. Estimated graduation date of March 2023. So what that means is that officer is basically going to be useless to us until next fiscal year. Narragansett Regional District, along with myself, has applied for a COPS grant, federal COPS grant. We're hoping that we get awarded that grant. They also have a large security portion of that grant for the new high school, or for the high school, middle school. But they need another officer at the school
we need more officers. I know I brought it up at the capital planning meeting at the joint meeting, that the town of Templeton is at almost 8,500 residents. And even if you use the low standard of 1.5 officers per 1,000 residents, we should have 13 officers. So Sergeant Fliss actually brought this up. He did some research. We answered 23,362 calls for service last year. Compared to 2002, we answered 13,544. That's over a 10,000 call increase. Now, I know you all get calls, each and every one of you, about services that the residents are requesting. With 9 full-time officers, I cannot meet those needs. Let me repeat that. I cannot answer those needs. If an officer makes an OUI arrest, those 2 officers are off the road. They're done. So that means almost 8 virtual hours. There's nobody out on that road. An officer can leave on an emergency. That's it. And under police reform, we're mandated to do so much more now. So when I have complaints, and quite frankly, I hear them all the time, why are there cruisers at the station? They can't leave. Yes, they take breaks. Everybody takes breaks when they work. Okay? But one arrest, even a simple arrest, that guy's off the road for 4 hours. So now you have 1 guy on the road. I cannot meet the needs that the residents of our town request on a daily basis. And I get it. I've been doing this for 27 years, 8 years as chief. I get it. It's the town of Templeton. We don't have a lot of money, but I cannot properly service the community with the number of people we have. And that's it. If you have any other questions.
Just have a comment, follow up to what you just said. The other day I was coming up Ballinville Road, speed limit's 30 to 35. And I get past, and my first thought is, where the hell's a cop when I want one? Because like you said, there's like about 100 miles of road, give or take, depending on what statistic you look at, that 2 cruisers on duty, if they're out patrolling, they're not going to be everywhere and places where they probably should be all the time if they're out on patrol. You can't cover the amount of area you have to cover for just basic service with 2. It's just a cruiser breaks down, an arrest, an accident. There's 1 guy gone at least. And people, I do get a lot of, I get calls, emails, and I see it on different places. Pave a road, make the road smooth. First thing people say,
Racetrack.
they're speeding. What are we gonna do? Why can't we do this? Well, he's over this end of the town. He's there involved in something. You can't be on, 2 people just can't be covering 100 miles of road as much as it should be covered.
Can't. And then you saw, I don't know if you're all aware of it, last week, you had up in Winchton 2 nights in a row, we had to go back them up. So now you got 2 officers out of town because mutual aid requests. It started off was possible suicide by officer, he ended up taking his own life. But you got 2 guys out. One had to break back to come back here, but you still got 2 guys out of town. And then the next night, they had an unruly prisoner, and both guys had to go up to help get the situation under control. So it is what it is, but we need to look outside the box and somehow figure out some help for this.
I just had a quick question on that. Are you calling in, like you're sending your 2 officers that are on shift, say at 6 p.m. They're going to Winchton to assist. Are you calling in overtime?
No,
So we have no officer on the roads in 4 precincts. We're not calling in the overtime.
No,
We don't feel the safe that you don't have
So-
it in your budget, why
basically, no, the budget wouldn't sustain that.
it wouldn't sustain,
But
but,
we also have a policy in place or a practice in place
okay.
that if we get called outside to Winchendon,
Mhm.
we call Phillipston to back us up.
Too bad.
Okay, if we get called out to Gardner, we'll call Hubbardston to come slide this way.
Okay.
We'll call state police to slide this way if we have to, if it's an emergency. Otherwise, if it's not an emergency, the calls will stack until the officers come back into the jurisdiction.
So they stack and then they get, so people are put on hold,
Yes.
basically.
And it's only gonna get worse with the police reform stuff regarding part-time officers to be able to fill positions. And so as I understand is reading the stuff and keeping up with all the requirements and stuff. It might not be right this second, but that's coming. And I know you've mentioned that more than once.
You're
It's
absolutely,
gonna affect it.
absolutely correct. We used to run 10 to 12 part-timers. We're down to 6. And once the bridge and the police reform goes into full effect, by 2027, we'll be lucky if we have 4.
So you have 6 part-time, you currently have 9 full-time. March of 23, you're gonna have 10 full-time. But you're telling us safety on the roads, et cetera. For the amount of people that are now living in our town, we should be at 13
We
full-time.
should be at 13.
Thank you. Just want to make sure.
I mean, like you said, you've been doing this for 27 years. You know what this board can do, what we say that we try and do. We just had our goal setting priority where the board says to Adam, this is what we'd like to achieve. I don't think we've had a goal setting where we haven't said to bring our public safety, because I know that you've got issues as well. And you guys get very spirited. This is why we need it. And it's not just, it's not lip service, it's real. It's, do you want me to pay attention to people burning out in their hot rods, or do you want me to pay attention to real public safety stuff? I think when you give this presentation, I sit here and say, what can we do? What can I do? And the best we can do is give budget guidance, come up with some creative ways. I mean, you guys get all the credit for adding your service to come up, you filled out the forms or otherwise, and we absolutely, let's try and make this happen sustainably. The tough part afterwards is to get where the money comes from, to get the public to understand. I know you want the service, but you've got to understand what, the pain is to be able to give that. So you've got my support to, if we ever get this to a fall or annual town meeting where it is asking for the right amount of money to make that happen. I'll stand out there on the floor and explain for all the points that I can within my wheelhouse, because you guys, you take care of it. I know that you come to the town meetings to discuss everything that you just said. So part of it, here we are, Groundhog Day again. You don't have enough people. We're going to do the best we can to try and add the money for it. We just, our goal setting sheet, I think, is going to get voted on the next meeting. But again, that's one of our priorities as a board. So we're here for you. We understand the pain. We don't live it every day. You do. So I appreciate the choices that you have to make. Thank you.
I can just say, really, we've been thinking and select board's goals were for us to grow our public safety staff. And we've come up with creative ways, and the board graciously supported the officer from the ARPA funds. But we're also, the chief working with the federal cops grant.
Yes.
So I think we're slowly heading in the right direction. And it's unfortunate because the chief's gonna have to wait till after the recruits out of the academy before they really start hitting the road. But I think we'll start seeing some improvement. Is it quite where the chief wants to be? I think we're heading there. But as budget constraints and everything else, I think we're making strides in the right direction. I just wanted to say that, chief, as well, because I know we spent a lot of time doing a lot of this work on the grant or with your proposal for the ARPA.
Yep.
So I think we're all on board. It's just a matter of when we get there.
To piggyback, so part of that is, you got the COPS grant. We really, and I know Julie is championing this and as well as Jeff is, we are fully intend to get a grant writer because we believe that that can reap lots of benefits for the town, the grants that we may not be aware of or whatever, but that's one of the ideas that we've had, to get a full-time person whose sole purpose is to seek out these opportunities so we can add back and have it sustainable too, not just the one-time monies or, hey, we got a grant for $10,000. Well, that's not going to get us anywhere. We need the big money. Good point.
One last follow-up, if I may, just regarding hiring officers. How's the recruitment?
So
Who the people interested in becoming, well, I know in some big cities, they're like leaving, but I don't keep up with statistics as much as I probably should on the smaller towns where
So we didn't have, I thought we were gonna have somebody qualified, meaning somebody that was already academy trained, put in for our position. Because there were some area cities laying off in towns, that didn't come to fruition. However, we did have 13 people put in for our position.
I don't qualify.
Well, no qualifications. However, this was actually the first time we had to go to a second interview process because 4 of the candidates were so good that we had to do a second round. And it ended up going down to a 1A and a 1B. That's how close they were. And, either one, I actually told all 4 of them afterwards in a letter that I would have no quorum sending any 4 of them to the academy. They were that good.
Wow.
And that was the first time we've ever done that. Usually we can sit here and the command staff, when we make our selection, that's the number 1 person. This time it was actually like, wow, these 2 are like that.
Wow.
And then these 2 are right there. So, yeah, not the qualified, but we did have good candidates. And we asked the specific question, why do you want to be a cop in this day and age? They had some very, very good answers. Free uniform.
I'm kidding, chief. I'm kidding.
Chief, I certainly hear the pain of trying to get somebody on board and we can't use them until they get through the academy and we get them through the certification process. This is not unique to Templeton in the year of 2022. When I worked out on the West Coast in the late 90s, fire service was going through the same gyrations. It was civil service. We brought people in, got them through the civil service exams, got them through the PATs, sent them to the fire academy, sent them to EMT or paramedic school, sent them to the wildland 1 and 2. We didn't see them for 8 months. But then the day they walked back in, push the button, watch them go, and they were on the job. But it's like everything. There's a lead time and a buildup. I certainly understand and can appreciate it. And I can certainly appreciate the frustrations as well.
One question, do you anticipate any retirements coming up? In that,
Any retirements?
Yeah.
Not any.
No, they're all
time
young.
soon.
good,
I would be the first that would be eligible for that.
good.
So,
Oh, that's good.
Sorry, Terry.
No, just that, training, again, you have somebody leaves, you want to be prepared to put somebody in this place. And the longer someone's there, the more valuable they
I
are.
know it seems slow, but it's steady. We're building your police as much as we possibly can in the time frame that we have in the budget. And we really have become pretty creative. And I agree with Mike that this town needs a grant writer. And we need to go after the free money, and we know exactly where it's going. And 3 of the top people in this town that run those departments are in this room tonight. So
I totally
you
understand
have
that.
our support 100%.
Just like I said, and I appreciate your support. but I would not be doing the community justice or my
Right.
office or my department justice if I do not advocate for them on a
Absolutely,
regular basis. So,
absolutely.
Much appreciated.
thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Comprehensive report.
Thank you. You all have a good evening. I am gonna go home now. It's been a long day.
Night, Chief Dickey.
Last but certainly not least, Mr. Curtis, our emergency management.
Good evening, everybody. This quarter, although it seemed very long, I only hit on the highlights of the main things that we did. We attended 2 meetings in Athol for the purpose of starting and joining a regional emergency planning committee. The Athol fire chief he's the emergency management director for Athol. He is offered to head this process up, which I'm sure nobody's going to complain about that. And we have since, after discussion with the board, we have sent a letter signed by our board chairman that we would like to join this committee. So we've got the process going. We're just, it'll probably be pretty much next summer before they actually get it going. But I believe he's getting ready to schedule another meeting. So we'll see what happens. I submitted 3 competitive grants during this quarter. You're all pretty much aware of those. The one for $25,000 for the hazard mitigation plan update, the $50,000 for the generator for the secondary emergency shelter, which was the senior center, and a $5,000 grant for the CERT team for shelter equipment. The shelter generator and the shelter equipment, those 2 grants, so that's the $50,000 and the $5,000, were both rejected. And I was given the reason that we did not score high enough. And I know what they mean, because they're looking for, on these competitive grants, that they're looking for people that are going after hundreds of, to care for hundreds of people. We were looking to set up a shelter that probably maybe 50 people there tops is all we could handle, but we want that as a secondary shelter. So anyway, we are shut down on those 2. I still have not heard anything about the $25,000 for the update of our hazard mitigation plan. I did attend the meeting today virtually that there's a whole lot of hazard mitigation monies available from FEMA and MEMA, and we aren't eligible for any of them because we do not have a hazard mitigation plan in effect. So this is where this is hurting us a little bit by not having this done yet. And it is almost a year-long process. It could take anywhere between 8 and 12 months to finish getting our update done. We haven't started it mainly because it's $25,000, and number 2 is because we're hoping we'll get this grant to save the town some money, but we'll see what happens there. I'll keep you posted on that as soon as I hear anything about that $25,000. I met with Beth Lambert from Mass Department of Fish and Game and Terry Griffiths, and there was another woman too. I can't remember her name. So
Joanne Burden, and was Dawn with us too? No, just the 3
yeah,
of us.
I believe Don did come with us. Yes.
Joanne
Uh,
Burden on Miller's River watershed or river.
Yeah, we went out and observed 2 of the dams, the one in Otter River and the one in Ballinville Center that we never knew existed,
That one
which
was-
was a nifty thing. It's not on any of our town maps.
It's huge too.
Yeah.
Which well is it there? Which well, Elm Street?
What's that?
Which well was that dam there?
On Elm Street. It's
Elm Street.
behind the Elm Street Dam.
Beautiful area.
And obviously the water department knows about it because they keep it mowed right up to it almost. So, but we never knew that dam existed. Don Moore and I attended a Mass Emergency Management Director Orientation Program at the GAAMHA office, and this was for, they're trying to certify EMDs now, or, you know, to get a little bit clout behind the program. So this is Don and I's attempt at getting our certification at this first certification. I guess is another one beyond that, but we're heading for this one right now. Peter Layton was appointed to the vacant deputy EMD position that Scott Tamar left. So Peter's on board now. He's just starting, but he's already done one training for us and is getting ready to do more, which is helping us out quite a bit. The MEMA coordinator visited the EOC once during this quarter, but I probably saw him 4 or 5 times at other events. We met with Bob Sosick and several others at the senior center to go over what's needed to be done at the senior center to make it ADA compliant, because that needs to get done regardless of whether we get any generator over there or not. If we're going to use that facility as a secondary shelter, we definitely need to get it ADA coordinated. And our CERT program activities. On 2 different occasions, we opened a cooling center at the senior center during the summer, 7:20 to 7:24, and then again 8:4 to 8:9. They weren't very well attended, but there were people there every single day. And I want to again thank Mr. Toth for covering for us one night so we could hold our meeting. So that was good.
Glad to help.
We held, this is the training that Peter Layton did, held a Stop the Bleed training at the Templeton Center Fire Station. This was the use of tourniquets and quick clot materials. It was a very good training. So that we're going to be doing that again, probably in the spring. We assisted at 2 community events, the road race, sponsored by the fire department, and Motorpalooza, sponsored by the Historical Society. And one I forgot about is we were asked to go up to Mount Wachusett Community College for a fair that they were having. 2 of our members, Don Morin and Tom Colero, went up there and set up a table. We took the CERT trailer and the rehab truck, the old ambulance, and basically promoted CERT for kind of 2 things. One is to try and get more people into our CERT, and also the Mount Wachusett is looking to start a CERT program at the college, but they're hoping to do it in the fashion of their members of community CERT teams, and then they join up there. So we did have 1 person come to our meeting from that so far. And Athol CERT has been started up with their CERT team, and their members have been attending our CERT meetings and trainings just to get their feet wet until they're fully operational. And that's really all we had going this quarter.
So once again, what'd you do in all your spare time?
Cooked food at the Orange Airport.
Put up the electronic sign at Templeton Center for coffee with the candidates. Did an amazing job. Thank you.
No problem.
Any other
Maybe I
questions?
should put certain volunteers wanted on those signs when they're available too.
That's a great idea, right? That's a
Absolutely.
great idea. Love it.
Absolutely. Any other questions for our emergency management team? Hearing none. Thank you very much, Rich.
Anytime.
Thank you, Rich.
Night.
Night.
Good night.
Moving on, action item 5E, quarterly reports, Q1 FY23, Public Works. Mr. Zosek, you're on deck, sir.
Good evening, board.
Good evening. Long day for you too, huh?
Oh, yeah.
So first quarter for 2023 on the highway department, our crews have been continuing to go around, patch many potholes and several apron repairs. Also been out cleaning and repairing catch basins and clearing pipes. Many trees cut, roadside brush chipping and cleanup from storms and otherwise just falling down or dead limbs. We continue to have beaver problems on Royalston Road, Henshaw Road and Stony Bridge. The town did hire a trapper for Royalston Road, and that's been good since they've gotten 2 beavers. We help clean up down trees at Cleanlawn Cemetery. The tree warden been busy responding to several calls to access multiple trees throughout the town for residents. Crew's been working on chapter 90 monies on South Road drainage and paving projects out there. We can continue to line painting and crosswalks, which is now complete. New computers are being installed in the town spreaders. Computer, and it's a valve to help save on material when putting out. So when a driver goes down the road, the computer is working off of the speed of the truck. And when it starts and stops, it disengages, so you're not wasting salt. And those will be all calibrated within the next couple of weeks. We took delivery of a new H1 Ford Ranger. It took 14 months. There were 16 driveway inspections, 2 road cut permits, 4 trench permits, 2 road cut escrow inspections for money release after the year's up. And moving into building and grounds. The cemetery is in the process of implementing the new software that was supplied by the grant. We're in the middle of building that now. They're going to be coming out shortly to drone the cemeteries for mapping. So we're hoping to have that in good operation by May. We had several burials and several flag duties during that time. Assisted patrons with the cemetery plot purchasing and location and graves and understanding the cemetery rules. Clean up, trash removal at Pine Grove, Green Lawn, Gilman Waite, in the town, open spaces. We poured multiple foundations for monument companies. Mowing and weed whacking, tree pruning, shrub trimming at the cemeteries and town buildings and locations. We assisted at town hall with moving boxes, voting booths, etc. There were 17 interments and 7 lot sales.
Who put the flowers in? Is it Green Lawn right on 2A down by Brooks Village? Is that Green Lawn by me?
Yeah, the commissioners voted on to dress up the 2 new signs with
It's
some,
beautiful. I noticed it right away. Good job. That's very surprised. And can I ask another question? Who does the data entry for the cemetery? So you got the program. Who does the data entry?
well, they helped us in putting some data in up from our most present data, but all the old stuff,
Yeah.
it's gonna take a very long time and years
Yeah.
to implement that into the program.
Is that something Mary Beth is looking into, or does?
She will be picking away at it, but it
Wow.
won't be this year. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
we can-
just, we're trying to work with the past, present, and the future. And then if there's some slow time, we can use that to start entering some of the real old stuff.
Grant writer first, then maybe data entry person later.
You're allowed 3, you got one more?
Anybody else? Thank you. Thank you.
How are the plows? Are they ready?
Yeah, the plows are in good shape. They're pretty much ready with, like I said, we're Still have one more truck to set up with this new computer and valve system. And get them calibrated, and it'll be ready to go.
Great.
And hopefully, the pre-ola trucks don't break down.
Mhm.
Anybody else?
I'm good.
Nope.
Thank you.
Comprehensive
Thank you.
report. Thanks, Bob.
Stay safe. Safe travels up the highway.
Action item F, Mass Lottery Commission Keno license. For Long Noodle.
Mr. Chair, Holly, do you want to update the board on this one?
Yeah, this is basically a formality. They issue the license. It's all through the state. Unless you have an objection, then we would have to write them a letter of objection. So it's a formality.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Rice,
I move to approve to not object to Long Noodle receiving a monitor and Keno license.
Second,
motion duly made and seconded. Just looking over the letter here. Any further questions, discussions, team? I just have one question, Holly, you may be able to answer. I understand the formality and, this license was already granted unless we deny it. Did we get a notification they were actually applying for it, or is this done quietly behind the scenes and we just get the end result when the commission makes their determination?
No, we don't get a notification only from them that what we got.
Okay.
They just go and apply directly to them.
And I do not know how the internal workings of the lottery commission are, so.
Probably none of us do, right?
I think that would be a safe statement to make. Any other questions, Steve? Hearing none, let's call a vote. Mr. Bennett,
Yes.
Ms. Griffiths.
Yes.
Ms. Richard,
yes.
Mr. Perry.
Yes.
And I vote yes myself. Thank you. Action item G. The water ban. Adam, would you like to present anything on this?
The board voted at their last meeting, Mr. Chair, to apply the MVP grant reimbursement funds. This is a one-year ban on the bond anticipation note of $500,000. The great thing about this debt is the MVP grant reimbursement will be applied against it. So fortunately for the water folks, I mean, even though the town carries the debt, that will eventually not stay on the books in time. So it's more of a temporary debt. Thankfully, that we received that grant the other evening, and the board voted to accept those reimbursements and apply those funds to the debt, similar like MSBA and the debt we had there. It's relatively similar. But as you can see, remember when we had the state house note, how low the interest rate was, then you can see how the interest rates are starting to climb.
They are.
That's the only the items of note really there, and only has all the paperwork from the treasurer, right?
Yes.
So you all have to sign after you vote to approve this. Because as I said, the town carries the debt, even though the water reimburses the town for their debt. That's all I have.
Always a good thing to see the debt being reduced and making other possibilities an option for us.
Absolutely.
So is it with Newburyport 5-cent savings bank or Hilltop Securities?
It's the bidders, we hope we go through Hilltop Securities. But the bidder is actually Newburyport.
Okay.
To answer their question.
It does.
Okay.
This, like everything else, follows our chapter 30B and procurement, just at a much higher level.
We're fortunate to have Hilltop.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Rice.
I move to award the $500,000 general obligation bond anticipation note dated October 21st, 2022, known as the notes, to the bidder submitting the bid attached here to relating to the notes.
Second,
I have a motion and a second to award the $500,000 general obligation bond. Any further discussions or questions, team? Hearing none, let's bring a vote. Mr. Bennett,
Yes.
Ms. Griffiths.
yes,
Ms. Richard,
Yes.
Mr. Perry,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. Item 5H, approval of the fall town meeting warrant.
Gary, would you like me to go article by article?
I think we should. There's a lot here to digest.
Sounds like a plan.
This is not 22. Oh, I said at least it's not 23 articles.
Much smaller, the fall. Okay, Article 1, everybody up for the page?
Yep.
Okay, Article 1's payment of late bills. The sewer department has had 2 late bills that were received after the closeout of the fiscal year. And, the new superintendent over there followed up with the vendor and indicated, moving forward that, these bills will have to be waiting to be paid because they have to go to town meeting because they received them in August. So Jeff Aldrich will be at superintendent at the town meeting to explain if anybody has anybody before ask questions relative to that. Pretty self-explanatory. Any questions? Nope.
Full time.
What was this?
Why are these bills late? Do we know?
Because
They seem to be late every year.
we received them in August. They received them in August and you can't pay them after a certain closeout date.
And they didn't receive them until then?
Correct.
Issue with the vendor, not with the department.
Okay.
It's where the software is between the water department and the sewer gets the readings and there's a lapse, so.
There's a big, yeah, it's every year.
Yeah.
I was just curious why we're not correcting that, but we can talk about that later, I guess. Thank you.
Article 2, the fiscal year 2023 operating budget amendment. This is where we had a lot of discussion on the grant writer. This will fund that position for half the year. This is another for $20,000 for the merit and equity raises for personnel. This is as a result of us doing the study. And then there was a request from the assessors, $20,000 training transition to deputy assessor there at times to assist with any kind of training throughout the fiscal year to ensure that the training process goes smoothly from the request of the assessors. But 75,000 total for the supplemental appropriation. Any questions on this one?
No questions, but if just I would be prepared to go into detail. At least on the pay raises.
I'll have Mr. Jacobs at the time.
Okay.
I think it's better coming from
Yeah,
Okay,
I just,
independent person.
you know, out of all of them, I think, I mean, the grant writer might get a question, but pay raise is gonna obviously, just the year that we're in, and otherwise, I support it. I just think we gotta be prepared to answer questions.
absolutely.
The
Spider
assessors
sense.
training transition as well, I think.
That's-
Might have some questions on that.
consultation.
And that one, I think we'll have Luann at town meeting to explain that and any
To explain that.
any further because that was a request from the assessor.
Right.
My office received.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big transition. So
I agree.
It
I
is,
would
it's
support
huge.
that, yep.
Thought it, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So that's it for Article 2, $75,000. The next one we received from the sewer commissioners. They're looking at $70,000 for inflation with operating and chemicals and everything else going up. So they're looking at getting $70,000 used from their certified retained earnings. Obviously, I double checked their numbers to make sure they had the sufficient funds. And going to use some more of the retained earnings, but that was a request of the sewer commissioners. For Article 3. Any questions on that? And once again, Jeff Aldrich and Mark Machete will also be there from the commission. Thanks for that. Article 4, this is a request from the treasurer collector for $25,000 to continue on. As you know, he's been working extremely hard, going after some of these properties that have been sitting and not paying. So this will certainly help to continue the good work she's been doing there. Any questions on this one? No. Article 5, this probably will be one of the most discussed by at fall town meeting is the rooster bylaw. This was submitted from the Board of Health. And this is I believe when I spoke with Lori, this will be complaint driven. This is one of those items where, the board, will, however you feel particularly on it, I think allowing town meeting to have say in the process, whether you're in favor of it or against it. This will just bring it to town meeting to have that discussion relative to roosters in town, noisy roosters, I suppose. Any further on this?
Nope, fully support for their health.
As
I read through it.
I read
Some
some people.
people are gonna be upset. Go ahead.
The only question I have is where the dollar amount here. Under 133-12 applicability. Between 2 and 5 acres, sale of products from agriculture use generates at least $1,000 per acre annually. 61A is at $500. How did they come up with this number? And you don't have that answer, but was this arbitrary? Was this just pulled out of the air? I don't know.
That's
It's in my mind, it seems it's over the top, but that's just me.
what I can do is I can follow up with Board of Health agent.
Yeah.
And good job. Put a note down on that. Can we follow up with them?
Well, it's so intent there. If you're generating over $1,000 per acre, you've got more of you're not just keeping roosters.
No,
You
I
know what
understand
mean?
that,
Yeah,
but I'm saying.
that's what I read it
For
as.
people who put agricultural property under 61A, the threshold is 500. I'm just
Okay.
curious how they came up with 1,000.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, that's what I thought too, because I was like, okay.
I think that's a good question to follow up on. We'll find out from the folks that submitted the article. Get back to you, Mr. Chair.
On there.
Well,
Okay, Article 6, this is amending the bylaws relative to Community Preservation Committee. You all know Parks and Recreation is pending with the special act by the general court. This is subject to the acceptance of the special act by the general court to update our bylaw where instead of under 4, only changes under 4 from one member of Templeton Recreation Commission is designated by that commission. They'll just change it to one member of the Templeton Parks and is the change. Recreation Commission is designated by that commission. Pretty self-explanatory. This is more of housekeeping. This was submitted by the Community Preservation Committee. Questions on this article? No? Okay. Article 7, this was on the title here, Community Preservation Committee. I just asked the board to add the word appropriations to the article title. Just if you could make note of them. These are the appropriations that the Community Preservation Committee is looking at doing for the fall town meeting. I'll go over all of them. It's a total of $124,000 for various activities. One of them, the first items for Narragansett Historical Society, $75,000 for Grange Hall out of their historic resources. This is for the continued rehabilitation of Grange Hall at 9 Hubbardston Road. Historic building in Templeton contingent upon demonstration of public benefit by continued admission to public events held at said Grange Hall for Templeton residents. Next item I'm looking at for an appropriation is next Narragansett Historical Society, $9,000 for drape restoration, coming out of their historic resources. This allocation will be used for the preservation of 2 historic drapes for display in the Templeton Grange Hall building. The last one is for item agent to expend is building and grounds, $40,000 for Gilman Way out of the open space fund. This is for continued improvements at Gilman Way, specific to making the public restrooms functional. Those were the 3 CPC appropriations that they're looking at doing. And you have that under Article 7. Any questions for me? Okay, Article 8. Cemetery rules. Bob and I spent quite a bit of time on this with his administrative assistant, Mary Beth, and the cemetery commissioners. I took them, Bob, how long would you say through the chair?
Probably 8 months.
Yeah, they really went through the rules and everything. They're doing a lot of work over there. I'm sure you folks are all noticing the improvements on the cemeteries. They went through all their rules. You can see any changes are in bold, any deletions are struck out. This continues on from that page to the next 2 pages. So they really went through and want to clean up their rules. So they're asking for the select board to support putting this on the warrant for the town to vote on for the cemetery rules.
Everything made sense to me.
Okay. Article 9 is the deposit to the demolition revolving fund. This is another one that's subject to the acceptance of the special act of the general court. This is to put in another 2,500. You folks, if I remember, we put in $50,000 that Kelly has held in a reserve, basically until it gets approved. And then that 2,500, you probably all remember, because I guess the interest doesn't stay within, because it's a revolving account. So I indicated to the select board that I would continue to fund this above what we would do with the interests, because that way we'd always have, once this gets approved by the general court, we have a well-funded account for problem properties. And I also want to note too, I think we had a resident that came to one of our meetings because the select board are the agent to expend out of this account. I know we talked about 10 Pleasant Street. I know it's getting us frustrated. Bob just asked me the other day when the legislature going to approve that so you get moving on 10 Pleasant Street. So folks out there that live in, or drive past that area and see 10 Pleasant Street, just know it's a priority of the board. We're just waiting for the legislature to act to have this problem properties account funded. And then we could take the appropriate steps forward with select board approval to then address 10 Pleasant or other problem properties within the town. Any questions on that one?
Do you have a roster right now of them? Or do you have like a running total?
The
Are
last
we
one,
talking about like bigger than a bread box, a dozen?
the last one, Justice, we just checked. It was in the second reading. Was it of the general court?
Oh, are you talking about the 2 pieces of special legislation? One of them is on the second reading in the House. It's been engrossed. Both of them have been engrossed by the Senate. One is on the second reading in the House. The other one is on the third reading in the House.
Okay,
One of them just a little bit ahead of the
yeah,
other.
thanks for that. How many problem properties in town do you think we'll have by the time? Is that
Major?
Maybe a question. I just wonder if we had a swag for a number of the ones that we had identified to say, here are the ones we're gonna work on.
I would say 2.
Okay.
2 are on my radar, but I'm sure Lori's,
That-
I'm
you-
sure
you
Lori's
totally-
listed a
Yeah,
lot.
you totally answered the question for right now. Thank you.
Or
Appreciate
I
it.
should say Mrs. Weeda's list is probably a lot larger than mine.
Okay,
But once again, it still has to come to the board. So
got it.
Okay, nothing else on Article 9. Article 10 is the deposits to the general fund stabilization OPEB accounts. So this will allow us to deposit $231,250 into our OPEX, CAPEX, our new infrastructure stabilization account, and our OPEB reserve account. Into our OPEX stabilization, you look at deposit 87,500, our CAPEX 57,500, our infrastructure 57,500, our OPEB 28,750. This is in accordance with our policy that we've approved. This is half the deposits and the other half will come at the annual town meeting. Do I have any questions on this one? Mr. Bennett?
Do.
Through the chair, sorry.
I have a couple, actually. The financial management policy, which is a policy of the board of selectmen, on page 8, it says, upon certification of the town's free cash, the town administrator shall prepare a plan for its use to guide the expenditure of free cash. According to the documents from the DLS, our free cash was certified August 26, 2022. I might have missed it if it got sent out. Was there a written plan outlining,
Clip it out.
sent out to the board?
Yeah, I recall sending that out. I believe actually I went over with the chair, the proposed uses of the free cash. With the
Your plan for the spending of free cash?
proposed uses, yes,
Yes,
I sent that out,
you did?
yes.
I didn't recall seeing it. My other question is, it says that there will be 15% of free cash to the general stabilization, 10% for capital stabilization, 10% for the infrastructure, and 5% to OPEB. My calculator shows 15% at $175,000. So where does the 87.5 come from?
Mr. Ben, I'm getting the copy of it right now to give to you.
No, I mean, the management policy states 15% of free cash will go into general stabilization. Why 87,000 is not 15%?
That's half of the 15%.
But the policy doesn't say do half of it now or half of it then. It says 15% to be available at we'll have our free cash certified to be available at fall town meeting. And if we're gonna put 15%, why are we splitting it up? What are we expecting to something come up to spend it?
Well,
I mean, it's mandated, the policy mandates to put 15%. Why do we not put 15% in now and be done with it? And it's one less article we have for the annual town meeting.
Well, generally, by practice, I'm going to deposit the 15% in by policy. The reason why I'm doing the half the deposits at the fall town meeting and then the other half at the annual is, let's say, suppose some type of a massive emergency were to occur or something happens, at least I could bring it to the select board and say, you know, this happened, you know, I know this is our policy, you're the policymakers, you could waive that policy if something catastrophic were to occur. So that way, I always have a deposit made at the fall, then a deposit at the annual. I mean, that's just the way I've been doing it since I've been here.
Well, I understand that, but if we have a catastrophic emergency, that's why we have a general stabilization fund. That's what that fund is for, supposed to be for. If we have an emergency, we also have the town's reserve fund, which is, again, the reason for that. Again, the policy says 15%. It doesn't say break it up in half, you know, now and half later. It's like we're leaving that money out there in case, oh, something comes up. So we're going to spend that instead of doing what the policy directs and put it in these 4 specific places. That's my question. I mean,
I
it's
just
our
took it as
policy
logic.
and the policy says
Yeah, I did too.
these percentages. It doesn't say half now and half later and save half of our savings and half of our OPEB money for an emergency that might come up. I thought that's what the 60% working capital is, which
60% of the 1,168,000 is 700,000. I thought that's what the working capital is for deficits, shortages, emergencies, unanticipated expenditures that might come up. I thought that's what the working capital is for.
Well, that's why
That's,
I think it's good to have these discussions. It's generally, I think how we've come quite a long way with our potential balances. What I have here is after our annual town meeting, we'll have at our OpEx stabilization, 1,500,000 roughly. Our CapEx will have 12 or 220,000. Our infrastructure stabilization will be at 115,000 and our OPEB at 315,000. I mean, the board wants to instruct me to deposit all of that at the fall. I have no problem doing that. I just, it's just more of an Adam style, I suppose, on how I manage. I think for the most part, though, I think we're making strides in the right direction financially. It's good that we have to have these discussions and how we could certainly do things differently. But I think the intent of the policy is certainly be followed. Whether the board wants me to do all the deposit at the fall and leave us with the 700,853 minus whatever we do at the fall town meeting for supplementals or any kind of other articles or special articles, and then you subtract that. But then you also have, I mean, we're trying to follow up and on other items, you have a projection and you also have to fund your capital too and come up with those numbers. That's why on the sheet, I'm pretty sure I thought I sent that out.
You did, Monday, August 29th.
I got it.
You did.
Yep.
So I guess it's just a matter of, that's just my management. I think we're doing a lot of good things. I think we've been in the best financial shape we've been in like decades, not 30, 40 years. I think it's a healthy discussion.
Mr. Chair. So I certainly understand what Jeff is saying, the literal translation of the financial management policy. So once we wind up doing the free cash calculations, then that's the number that we should be using. The ends justifies the means kind of, that's the logic that I think that we've used before when we've split it out to be able to show what that, the total balance is. So 87 and 87, 175. Management style, notwithstanding the black and white letter of the law or policy in our amendment. Jeff, does it hurt us to not build flexibility into it? Or, what would you, I see what you say, black and white of the policy, but does it hurt us to not maintain flexibility and just throw the 175 in it now?
I mean, we have the flexibility built into the policy. That's what the 60% is supposed to be for.
Yeah.
It's like we're sitting this aside saying, well, if we have an emergency, we're not going to put it into our reserves. We're gonna cover that emergency.
I see what you're saying.
So
Like
what
the
is
flexibility is
point
already
of the
built in. That's
60%?
why these things exist. I got it.
So-
I got you.
I mean, I could, it's an easy change. I'll have one less article at the end. I mean,
I like how you put to put the positive spin on it. That's nice.
well, it's,
Yeah, one less article.
Mhm.
I mean, it makes sense to me. I just, don't want to act without, I don't know, it's 6 or a half dozen of the ways you guys are explaining it. But it does have the totals in there, Jeff, in the PDF. So your point is still valid for why not all of the 175 now, as says the policy. I get it. I don't know.
I mean,
I'm either way.
I could, if the board wants to, I could change that.
If he sent it, I'll see
this
it.
evening.
If the flexibility was there, though, if it's already in the policy, so you're following policy.
But there's what Jeff is saying is there's our flexibility.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I mean, that's the balance after the total 175, but his 60% working capital fund. I understand.
Good.
I mean, it doesn't bother me. We can make the adjustment before you sign if you want to just adjust it. You would, like what I sent out, you'll just have to add those numbers up here for the final. We could do it all at the fall. it doesn't bother me either way. You just have to might wait a little bit. To the meeting, so I could
I know.
adjust the warrant.
But it's how you've seen us do it before, is why it's presented this way.
That's just the way I've been doing it. I mean,
Okay.
I don't mind changing the way I do it. The board's decision, ultimately, you control the warrant.
Do these accounts get interest?
But they go,
So if you put in 150,000 in one lump, that's gonna give you extra interest.
that's another good point. If the market doesn't go down.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter to me one way or the other.
It doesn't matter to me either.
Procedural, it's a good, healthy discussion. And it shows that we are paying attention to the numbers.
Or at least the process. And Jeff, you meant all 4 areas, right?
Yes.
So this would be one of the only amendments that we have so far. To as, you know, instead of as presented, it would be amended.
It'll be as amended with the total number, so we'll have like the OpEx that we, 175,000. 57.5, 57.5, 57.5, 57.5, 28,750, then we just add up the total amount.
It's 351. 351.
I probably, what was I doing?
Anyone else do the math, or was I was the only one?
No, I got 231.
Oh, geez.
231.
Never do math in public.
No, I got 231, 231, 250.
What was?
I
it
got
again?
462.5.
Wow, boy, did I screw that up?
What do you got, Jeff?
For the total.
For a
deposit.
total, 467, 235.
No, I rounded.
Well, that's what I did. My 15% was 175, 213.20. So I just rounded down to the 10% is 116, 808. 80. So I just went to 09. And the 5% was 58,504. That was a calculator, so you might want to check that math.
Would the 4 areas be what he has on that sheet, 175, 213, or are you redoing?
I would have
The
to redo,
percentages.
I would have to redo the total amount, which I have 462,500. I have OpEx stabilization, 175,000. CapEx stabilization, 115K. Infrastructure stabilization, 115K. Then I have 57.5 for OPEB.
175, 115, 115, 57, 5.
Yeah, so the deposit would be, the amendment would be appropriate the sum of 462,500. And the OpEx would be 175,000. CapEx would be 115,000. Infrastructure would be 115,000. And then the final one would be 57,500.
Everyone good?
I'm good.
That was the as
It
amended.
changed since August 29th. It says 116,809.
No, they redid the percentages.
Okay.
Yep, so as amended.
Anything else, Article 10?
Any other discussions, Article 10?
Okay. And the last one's Article 11. This is to delete fireworks civil assessment within chapter 1 through 7. This is a bylaw in town. We already have mass general law that governs this. It's just to delete language that we really don't need in our bylaws. More housekeeping.
Hey, keep plugging away at it. Get them updated.
Get in there.
Chief Bennett. He governs this. He would be the one.
Police department.
All right, I just,
But they already have mass general law.
yeah, I don't have any questions.
Housekeeping, updating is always a good thing.
Yeah.
So that's it for the fall town meeting warrant. Mr. Chair,
Thank you for that.
11 articles.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Weiss,
I move to approve the fall town meeting warrant for the town meeting to be held on November 2nd, 2022, as amended and for the board to sign.
Second,
motion made, duly seconded. Any further discussions, team?
Yes, there's.
Hearing none, bring this to the vote. Mr. Bennett,
Yes.
Ms. Griffiths.
Yes,
Ms. Richard,
yes,
Mr. Curry,
Yes.
and I vote yes myself. Thank you. Article 5I, we have in front of us donation to the senior center from Robert and Patricia Gale.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Weiss,
I move to accept the donation to the senior center in the amount of $50 from Robert and Patricia Gale.
second that motion.
motion duly made and seconded. Any discussions, team?
Just a very grateful, again, thank you to these people that are. It seems like a small contribution, but to some of these people, I truly believe, it's a good sum of money, especially in these times right now. And it's very much appreciated to that group,
Absolutely.
that couple. Thank you.
It also shows their dedication and support to what's going on with the senior community center. Absolutely. Any further discussions? Hearing none, to the vote, Mr. Bennett,
Yes.
Ms. Griffiths.
yes,
Ms. Richard,
Yes,
Mr. Curry,
Yes.
and I vote yes myself. Brings us up to item 6A, old business. General release for 59 Brooks Village Road.
I'll take the table. You can come forward, but I'll take the table.
No, that's fine.
I know it's small. I know it's small type. I know. I'm just want to give you a copy. I honestly can't read anything on paper.
You want one? All right, good evening. Vice Chair Curry. I want to say thanks, Mr. Radigan. You own on the south side of Brook Village Road, correct? Correct. Yep. And Mr. Lutchford, thank you for coming. I know that you've said in previous appearances here that, that you've got limited visibility, so any help that you need, like if you have any, to get home or otherwise, please let us know. But I thought of that as I was sitting here.
Out there to the dark and I find my way through the parking lot to Cumberland's with all the coffee.
Okay,
That's all I have to know.
well, we're here for you, so, but thanks for being here. Yep. Board, at our board meeting on 14 September, I accepted the task to perform an inquiry review of the matter of 59 Brooks Village Road and the presented request for reimbursement at the installation of a replacement driveway by Mr. David Lutchford, property owner of said address. The premise of this request was twofold: a planned collaborative between Mr. Lutchford and the town of Templeton that was to appear for decision by the select board on September 14th in order to repair or replace the driveway, providing access to the residents at 59 BVR, Brooks Village Road. Help out with some acronyms. Second premise was based on a request from Mr. Lutchford for the town to reimburse him for the installation of a driveway due to the reported damage. The now previously existing driveway damage allegedly caused by a number of factors, including beaver infestation leading to flooding, poor driveway drainage management, and improperly functioning municipally owned structures. I endeavored to find the facts and make an equitable recommendation to the board no later than 30 days time. So I think I've met that so far. The collection of facts included three sources: Mr. Lutchford's presentation that he gave in front of the board, all of his emailed products to include the 10 megabytes of pictures that I got today, along with all the town correspondence. And then I also conducted interviews and discussion with the various town subject matter experts to include Mr. Sozik and Lori Witta. I want to make the statement that I am not a subject matter expert on beaver activities, hydrology, roadway engineering, nor municipal law. I have performed an inquiry in order to better inform the board in accordance with our select board policy. I concluded my collection on 28 September. Mr. Chair, do you want the long version or you want me to skip to the recommendations or findings?
Let's go ahead through it.
Okay.
For the benefit of.
All right.
Mr. Lutchford.
What I found or made assumptions on are there is periodic flooding in the area surrounding 59 Brooks Village Road, or BVR, dating back years, and it has become predictable. At least that we do get flooding. And so it is on the DPW's radar. There is a culvert west of 59 Brooks Road that is necessary to drain north to south running water from the Trout Brook and resident-owned lake north of BVR. The paved driveway in question has been in place since the Lutchfords purchased property in 1995 and has degraded over time. The paved driveway is raised and is affected by flooding caused when the water fails to drain in the increased precipitation and melt off through several culverts along BVR, but specifically at the Trout Brook. The paved driveway has or had an equalizing pipe that mitigates some of the west collecting water and diverts it to the east side of the driveway. Mr. Lutchford has provided ample evidence of diligence in maintaining his responsibilities as they pertain to the overall hydrology on his property, water flow and water dynamics of the Betty Pond, Dam, Trout Brook, BVR culvert, and inlet outlet concerns. He has these responsibilities from a vested interest in the wellness of his property, but also mandated by deed. The culvert has been in continuous operation and is sometimes cluttered with debris from flooding and beaver activity. The DPW, who has responsibility for this municipally owned structure and road, has taken action numerous times over the years to clear and counteract beaver activity. The DPW has installed 2 different grate systems over the past few years with limited success, as the beaver activity necessitates frequent monitoring, which the DPW has reported they have done at least weekly. The driveway is aged, cracked, and in some areas sank over the years of flooding, to the point where navigating the driveway has become treacherous to the residents during periodic flooding. Another factor that contributes to proper drainage of the road coming through the culvert is the outlet side of south of BVR. That's Mr. Radigan's property. The south side is private property and has reportedly grown in denser vegetation over the years, which the DPW reports that it decreases the absorption of water once through the culvert, thereby causing the culvert to back up. One of the contributing factors. Town of Templeton health agent has recommended that beaver trapping permitting process to the landowner, which it is believed that no permit had ever been pulled to attempt affecting the clogging of the grate system and or culvert. The town has contracted a trapper on at least on one occasion, but to the DPW director's point, the beavers ultimately return. A compromise and collaborative approach to the mending of the residence driveway, not the culvert nor the grate system, had been discussed for at least a year, as shown in the pages of correspondence between Mr. Lutchford, TA Lamontagne, and Director Sozik. It appeared that although there were some minor disagreements on the final agreement, the release to divide work between the two parties and release any further claims against either party was ready for select board decision and certification. There were disagreements leading up to that, but ultimately it's the select board's place to be able to address the details of it. Finally, sometime before the 14 September select board meeting, Mr. Lutchford coordinated and executed a plan to reinstall a driveway at 59 BVR. All work has been completed and presumably paid out by Mr. Lutchford. This work is the basis of the approximate $17,000 demand for reimbursement. Knowing this, what I have determined is the driveway at 59 BVR was in a degraded state, but not impassable except for periods of intermittent flooding. I do not have sufficient evidence to support that flooding alone would have caused damage significant enough to warrant replacement. That is the direct assertion by Mr. Lutchford. Mr. Lutchford's knowledge, recollection, and note taker were very helpful in determining a way forward, however. The culvert at the Trout Brook is serviceable and can perform the function of drainage of water from the north side to the south side of BVR. The structure is not in optimum condition and is pitched, but it is not in disrepair. Further, the grate systems that have been used to provide protection against debris, but are not adequate when beavers are present, which is why the DPW has reported that this location is on a regular rotation of manual clearing to allow for proper drainage. I cannot make any determination on whether the reported frequency is sufficient to prevent all flooding situations. It was reported by both parties that the type culvert that exists could and likely should be replaced by a box type culvert. The culvert efficacy, or how well it works, is the paramount concern and was central to my study on whether the town should accept any responsibility for the alleged damage to the driveway at 59 BVR. Even if it is ultimately determined that there is some liability against the town for the prevention of flooding, it is not the sole factor causing the decision to fully replace the aging driveway. Periodic flooding is known in this instance. It becomes a joint concern between the municipality and the landowners that have both inlet and outlet responsibilities. The DPW has an ongoing mitigation plan for the proper care and maintenance of the culvert west of the 59 BVR driveway. And finally, Mr. Lutchford acted on his own to install and or replace his driveway, knowing that the town was working on a compromise that would assume some of the work necessary. Finally, my recommendations to the board. The board should not and cannot proceed with a release at this time, as Mr. Lutchford has acted in a breach of process that was jointly planned by the TA and the DPW director in order to share the liability, municipal responsibility, and ultimately the costs of repairing the driveway, servicing the residents at 59 Brooks Village Road. The release was the culmination of a process that would have allowed relief to Mr. Lutchford by way of a compromise-driven work plan to address some of the conditions at the south end of his driveway. By acting without coordinating with the town, he has prevented the town from properly executing public funds to assist a private resident with private property. I would further recommend that the town continue to assist Mr. Lutchford in mitigating the overall conditions that enable flooding and flood damage to any property in the facility. And more to that point, off my notes, much of the material that he sent me today was pictures of the culvert, whether it was flooded, clogged, or cleared or otherwise. But again, more to the point of the culverts necessitating servicing. If Mr. Lutchford maintains his desire for complete or partial reimbursement, it will be necessary to do by a claims process and or court action. Only then can a proper assessment of any town liability be accomplished. I would further recommend that the TA work with the DPW and Development Services and also Mr. Lutchford to develop a strengthened mitigation plan so that the newly installed driveway does not become degraded in similar periodic flooding. Items to consider are a joint beaver removal plan, continued culvert maintenance, possible culvert replacement, foot stomp, resident involvement with inlet and pre-inlet conditions. We are the responsible custodians of town property and should instruct the TA and the DPW director to provide a timely response on the possible replacement strategy for a new type culvert. Which again, as I typed that last part, with all of the result, actually the correspondence today, that's one of the major issues, is to be able to address that type of culvert. Finally, or just to close, it is unfortunate that I have come to this conclusion, as I always attempt to find a way to support our residents, but it was proper to do so based on the research and process that had been nearly agreed to by both parties. What questions do you have?
I don't have a question, I just have a comment. Regarding working with the health director on the beaver issue, there is Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 80A, where a homeowner whose property is being flooded by the acts of beavers, they can go to the Board of Health or the health agent and get a special permit to deal with the beavers. If the Board of Health or that local health agent denies that, they can do an emergency appeal to the State Department of Public Health and or their director to get a permit to deal with those beavers, because, you know, beavers do not belong to the town. They're just nature's civil engineers that love to build dams and floodplain stuff. So that's an avenue of approach. And according to our health agent, that information has been passed on to the homeowners. So that is another option. If your driveway or land is being flooded, your house is in danger because of beavers, you can get a special permit to take care of the beavers. And very specific guidelines according to Mass General Law. So, and the other issue is I drove up there to look at the downstream side, especially just before tonight's meeting. And it is overgrown. There is some debris there, but it's private property. And unless it's dug out so the water can flow, we could go put a 36-inch box culvert in there. And if the water has no place to go, it's just going to collect and still back up. It's a multifaceted issue with that road, but.
Right. I don't know what the impact of a box culvert
As much
was.
as much as we can do. I mean, the DPW, the health agent has responded multiple times. It's unfortunate, but the town taxpayers cannot be paying for private driveways.
And ultimately, we are not the authority to make that happen. Whether he built the driveway or not, it still would have been a claims process from Mr. Lutchford to say it's not the same as a snowplow goes by your driveway and knocks over your mailbox. This is a significant claim against the town to be able to say the town had liability for factors leading to the damage of personal property. So whether it's now or prior to him building the driveway or whatever money he might have expended up to that point, it still would have been a claims process. But certainly that weighed on my mind to not throw something into litigation. But in this case, that was the remedy to be able to do that. That's the unfortunate part, that it has to be settled by, I think it's land court. The part that I tried to stress was the fact that I wanted to give the recommendation of the board to not go through the release process, but we should continue to work with both inlet and outlet to be able to address any issues. He built, we saw the pictures. He built this, beautiful driveway for 17 grand. I want to make sure that that's not going to suffer the same demise for that. So that's why I put that in the recommendations, to say there are several things, including beaver mitigation. And the culvert being the point at which the town is responsible for. It's a joint mitigation plan. I don't know how many live in Beaver Pond or up in the north section there. I don't know like I said, I didn't profess to be a beaver expert, but in terms of shared responsibility for abating these critters seemed to be appropriate if they were such a focal issue at the culvert. And that's my report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Mike.
Give you a.
Okay.
Gold star.
Yeah, it's up to the chair.
Mr. Lutford has been patiently waiting. I am going to allow him to make a comment. Okay.
It's tough.
Thank you very much for your report
Absolutely.
and your time. As a matter of fact, I sent you another email after 5:30 with a couple of other pictures of today.
I got them all. I was right at my computer.
I didn't,
finishing this up.
I had sent some to Holly because the file was too big
Mhm.
and it wouldn't go through the town. So
I got both.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. The only contention I'll have about the report so far until I get to read through it and kind of go over it. Just a note that we've got.
Email it to you if that makes it easier to, I'm sorry to.
Yeah, that'd be
if it-
fine. I
okay.
can image invert it and everything on my computer. I'd have to do that with this as well. Because I can't read paper. That's just how it is.
I will email it to you.
If I wrote it, I couldn't read it. So I want to just say about the cost. Now, I know that you went through the emails. But I just wanted to re-stress the point about the only reason it was at $17,000 is because of Mr. Lamontagne and Mr. Sozik's insistence that I dig up the driveway to replace a functioning pipe. They would not allow this matter to come to the select board otherwise, unless I agreed to do that. There was two things at play there. First, I would have to dig up the spot where they said the pipe was, where they said there was a pipe that was failing because they saw a pothole with a void under it. Next, I would have to dig up, and I had to dig up the actual place where the pipe was 35 feet down the driveway. Because his contention, Mr. Lamontagne, was that I needed to agree to replace that pipe. Well, once we were in that standoff, I'm looking at winter coming. And I deemed that driveway would not be plowable in the winter, not safely. Somebody was going to go off that driveway. So I had to act during the summer, during the time that my contractors and the driveway people told me I needed to put a driveway in. Not only I could just establish it, but then we'd have to like the road, like today, up to the time of the meeting, I was working on the edges of the driveway and trying to compact them. I'm going to be putting riprap stone eventually, but I'm trying to get this process to a point where I can put grass seed in. That grass seed won't take now. And imagine if we decided that you were going to help me in November or right now in October. I already had a 2-month head start because I had to go, I had to act. But the only reason that we dug up and replaced the entire driveway is once we had to dig up 2 spots, one to prove there was no pipe, and then second to prove where the pipe was and it was fine. To fill that back in, that pipe is at base level. That means 4 feet under the driveway. You're not going to just dump dirt back in there and get that driveway to react and be a traversable, even driveway, because now you're compacting 2 different places that you just dug up that were solid. I mean, they were solid enough that the rest of the structure was fine. All I had ever asked Mr. Lamontagne to do was have the DPW come in and just re-level it. That cost would have been $9,000. I had to spend $1,800 to have cable and the electric company come in to move the wires, because an excavator with a big tall stick digging those trenches out couldn't fit under there with those wires safely. And the town just came and moved their wire back just yesterday. The cable company, I'm asking them to hold off because I'm hoping they can just keep it to the side of this for the next time this happens. Hopefully it doesn't, but I don't want to spend another $1,080 on Comcast just to move a wire because the driveway has to be dug out. I would not have had to dig that out if it hadn't been for Mr. Lamontagne and Mr. Sozik's insistence. And I would have been perfectly satisfied with having the thing re-leveled and deal done. But he was forcing me to do this, Mr. Lamontagne, in order to have this matter brought to the select board. Otherwise, you wouldn't have heard it. That's the only reason we're even here, is because I did that work. Then he agreed to go forward. And so that's my total. I don't want to spend 35 minutes talking like I did last time. So that's, in the culvert. I noticed that we're talking about the culvert, we're not talking about the pitch. So the pitch, I know it was mentioned briefly.
Yeah.
But the pictures I showed you with the debris in the end of it, the reason that's sitting at the end is because it can't flow out. It's sitting in the top end. So I went in and physically pulled it out myself. And it's been clear most of the summer. And the beaver activity had actually gone away. And so I was hopeful about that. That's a new uptick. So the beavers are back.
Yeah.
But as far as the beavers, I didn't want to take responsibility of what I consider a town animal control issue. I just want to have a disagreement about that point because this is going to be my problem just because I'm a resident there on Brooksville Road. But these beavers are on my property. They're on the neighboring properties across the road now, all that I mentioned. And they are the primary source for all this problem.
Yeah.
And that is an animal control issue. That's my contention here. I know you want to say it happens to be a property owner situation. It's not, because the minute I trap a beaver, there'll be some coming across from another property and back and over here, and it just never ends.
I know.
But you have animal controls for puppy dogs and kitty cats, but you don't have it for beavers who are very destructive. If they start doing damage to the culverts and the road collapses, or my dams on the pond and the dam collapses, that's because it's an animal control issue. It's not a property control issue. And that needs to be addressed. And that's what I'm asking the town to do, is take responsibility for that. Not just we can share some of that and not so official. I think that anytime I call and say we got a beaver activity, I think the town, the Board of Health Director, whoever you want to call, should say we're going to hire a trapper, the town is, and they're going to get rid of those in that area. That's all I'm asking. And so those were the 2 points I want to mention. And other than reading through this, and
I'll email that to you.
maybe, yeah. And I don't know if there's a place for future discussion on what
That's exactly what I was gonna say, Dave. I pledged to do the report, and otherwise I'll leave it up to you for percentage for really understanding a lot of issues, because you bring up a lot of
those
other
couple.
stuff. I wasn't trying to solve the issue. I was basically just coming up with a recommendation for the
Yeah.
board, but I won't let go of this. I'll stay with it. Whatever, I can help Bob and the TA with, or whatever the board, might come up with ideas. We got a rooster bylaw on the fall town meeting. So,
heard.
maybe in time we get a beaver bylaw. I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm just trying to be a little bit positive.
Well, remember, there were 3 issues, but the 4th one was because of that driveway pipe and Mr. Lamontaine's insistence that I dig up my pipe. I would not have done that because the pipe was functioning properly. Your cost or shared cost, whatever, would have been at $9,000.
Right.
All that rest is because of what he forced me to do in order to get this matter brought here.
Okay,
Okay, thank you for your time.
absolutely.
Thank you.
I'll email that to you, Dave. Thank you.
Oh, what's this claim process? You mentioned there's a claim process that if you're not going to help me here.
So the phrase of claim process and or court action, I think what you need to start with is looking at land court. Certainly we've got town offices, you can ask the question, but I had those 2 words, claims process and court action, because I needed to fully understand what we might have had municipally for a claims process. And we just don't have one that would account, not here in this town, would not have something to deal with something with this magnitude. And that's more to the point where I said, we didn't run over your mailbox. It was more of, systemic problems for, flooding, something that it's going to have a multiple, what am I trying to say?
Tier of.
Multi-tier problem,
Multi-tier,
multifaceted problem. So we don't have a claims process here, but I melt that more into the court action to be able to say, I helped another resident on the other part of town with court action, be able to say, you start with land court, retain counsel to say, hey, this is what I'm looking to do. I think the town owes me money for my driveway because of beaver flooding or otherwise, but that's going to be your discovery.
And that would include Mr. Lamontaine's insistence that I replace a pipe that didn't.
Yeah, I mean, your narrative is what you would take to court to say the town had, as I said in there, if there is liability, that's going to be part of that process.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Lou. Be safe.
You too. Thank you all.
And thanks, Holly. You know,
Welcome.
that item had no suggested motion. We'll take the comments under advisement. At this point, I will entertain board member and administrator comments and any additional reports or seconds. Mr. Bennett?
I think I said enough.
Good.
Ms. Richard?
I'm good, thank you.
Mr. Perry?
No, I'm good. I just, again, that suicide prevention workshop. No, 5 November, 9:30 at the Narragansett Middle School.
Breakfast is starting at 7:30 at the Legion.
Yep, I hope to be flipping pancakes. I got a multicam apron for myself and Chris Bowmeal. Pretty excited about that.
Adam?
I'm all set, Madam Chair, thank you.
You can
Holly?
clear it.
Justice.
All set.
Okay. That said, we will be entering an executive session. Possible actions under MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A2 to conduct a strategy session in preparation for contract negotiations. This will require a vote to come out of open meeting. The intent I would have is we enter the executive session. Once we exit executive session, we only come back into open meeting for an adjournment. I would entertain such a motion.
So moved.
Second,
Motion made and seconded to enter executive session for the sole purposes of discussion and then exiting only to close the open meeting. That does need to require a roll call vote. Mr. Bennett?
Yes.
Ms. Griffiths?
Yes.
Ms. Richard?
yes.
Mr. Perry?